integration or trading agreements. Okay, chapter 9 talks about regional economic integrations. One of the, first of all, from the name, economically, we are more integrated within a region, such as a good example, NAFTA, right? NAFTA is a very good example. It's in one region. Economically, United States, Mexico, and Canada are more integrated, right? So that's basically an example. NAFTA as an example. Now, how about Europe, European Union, the zone? That's also an example too, right? It's a region, economically they're integrated. But is it exactly the same thing, same level of integration that we have here among our NAFTA states, member states? Is it exactly the same integration within the European states? No, right? They're way more integrated than we are. So in this chapter, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how integrated, what is the level of integrations when it comes to regional economic integration. Now, the reason behind regional economic integration is, first of all, if you guys remember after World War II, we said why the organizations, international organizations or intergovernmental organizations were established or they were founded. One main reason it was always behind it. Politics, right? Political stability, because it was World War I and then World War II, so countries noticed that they need to have a place that they send representatives and they all discuss their issues, civilized manner, not getting into war, okay? So they decided that's how they came up with United Nations. Well, we had League of Nations before, but it never worked. So they started with United Nations, and then World Bank, IMF, oh, sorry. World Bank, IMF, GATT, GATT. So all of those, they came up with it. They're all intergovernmental organizations established after World War II, and that was the reason, basically, to have a place that they can, each state can send a representative, and they can discuss in a civilized manner, in order to reduce the political instability around the world, reduce the tension around the world. When you reduce the tension, when you have least tension, political tension in the country, the first thing it helps is the economy of the country, right? So what you see here is the second reason that you always see. But the main reason behind it is political stability. Now, when we talk about region, if you think about it, even if a country is very strong, very stable, but it's in a very unstable area of the world, region, politically unstable regions, such as volatile, such as the Middle East, okay? Or Africa. Even that strong country receives a lot less foreign direct investment, right? Not a lot of foreigners would like to invest in that country. Example of Israel or Turkey, right? Even though Turkey, for example, might be stable by itself, not last 3 weeks, but it might be stable by itself, right? But because it's located in a region that is very volatile, it impacts its capability of receiving foreign direct investment as well. So that's why, if in a region we can establish political stability, it helps the entire region to receive more foreign direct investment, more trade volume, right? Higher trade volume. That's why. Now, another example, when I was writing my dissertation, my research was based on how can sanction impact the country that is basically under sanction, right? Now, one of the important facts are the geographic proximity. Very, very important. If you pose sanctions on your neighboring country, it will impact them a lot more and you will achieve goals very fast, rather than if you're posing sanction on a country halfway around the world, right? Why? because by the time the shipment goes there, it can go to all neighboring countries, and then from neighboring countries can go to the country. Label changes and everything changes, goes to the country, right? Think about the landlocked countries. Remember how neighboring countries are important, right? So when the geographic proximity is very far, it doesn't affect as much, especially when it's unilateral sanction. So only one country imposes sanction to the other country. Neighboring countries are working with it, right? Working with the country that is under sanction. So that's what, when we talk about regional economic integration, it's all about having political stability in a region. That, as a result, it will bring economic stability to the region as well. Now, most countries around the world do have some form of regional agreement. They're involved in some form of regional agreements. We have regional agreements in the Middle East, in Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa. We have 17 in Africa. Europe, European Union. We have North America, CAFTA, Central America. We have a couple in South America. So all countries around the world are involved in some form of regional trade agreements with their neighboring countries. And as I said, it's because they have a stronger support, stronger stability for the country. Now, this was a picture of a global trade and investment environment in Africa. So as you see here, 17 African trading blocs, but none of them have been successful so far. Only one, and when that's Eastern African countries, that they actually stopped it and then relaunched it again, stopped it, relaunched it again. Because of a lot of corruption, they could never pick up and really implement the policies. Now, when we're talking about regional economic integration, the most basic one is to remove trade barrier, which we did with NAFTA, right? So just to remove trade barriers, at least the finished products can move freely. Now, let me go to this slide and this one basically are the most important slides in your chapter 9. Starting from here, free trade area, this is the least integrated regional economic integration, which is NAFTA, Canada, United States, and Mexico. And then the more we move out, it's more integrated, which finally becomes political union. It's just one country together, two countries merged. Now, I'm going to explain more what it means. Okay, look at this one here. The higher it goes, the more integrated they become, okay? Each of these columns, they have at least one of these characteristics. So the first one, free trade area, has removal of intra-group tariffs. Free trade area, example, FTA, NAFTA, or USMCA right now we say, right? Or NAFTA 2.0. Which is only, can labor, all factors of production move freely? No, right? That's why it's the most basic one. Labor cannot move freely. Capital cannot move freely. You have to report, right? So the only thing that can move freely is the finished products. Why we say freely? Because we have removed, or in some cases eliminated, barriers of trade. Anybody remembers the barriers of trade? Let's just review exactly. Tariff is one of them, very good.
Quotas.
Quotas, very good. So you guys remember. Tariffs, quotas, administrative policies, a lot of other stuff, right? So we have removed, or in some industries, eliminated those barriers. That's free trade area, NAFTA, removal of intra-group tariff. Intra-group, ours, an example is Mexico, Canada, and United States, right? The next level of integration, when they want to become a little bit more integrated, it's called customs union. They have, each of them that we move here, they have the former characteristics and one extra, right? The new ones. For example, customs union already has passed that level of removal of intra-group tariffs. The next one that it has, the new one, is common external tariff, which they call it CET. So in your book or online in your exam, you might see CET, that's Common External Tariff. What is Common External Tariff? A good example for customs union, it's Mercosur. It's in South America, Mercosur. The member states are Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Venezuela was one member state, but they kicked Venezuela out. Now is those four countries, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay. So what they have done under customs union agreement, they already removed intra-group tariffs. Those countries, they don't charge each other tariffs, right? The other characteristic that they have added is that if one of those member states has an agreement with outside members to remove tariff or quota, so should the other member states. For example, if Brazil says, I'm going to remove barriers of tariff, barriers of trade for American automobile products, right? United States is not part of those countries, right? So it's not inter-group, it's outside. So when Brazil says, I'm going to actually have an agreement with United States to remove barriers for trade, for automobile industry, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Argentina should do the same thing. All the other ones should follow exactly the same. That's why they have common external. The United States is external tariff, okay? Now, the next level is common market. Common market, as you see, it has removal, already did removal of intra-group tariffs, common external tariff. Now it's free movement of goods, people, and capital. So people can, there is no border basically. People can move freely, goods and capital, just like European Union, right? I have seen textbooks that they put mostly they put European Union under economic union. But I've seen a few that they put European Union under common area market as well. I personally believe it should be somewhere here, and I will tell you why that's how I feel. First of all, it says free movement of goods, people, and capital. European Union has all of those three. There's no border, right? The movement of products, people, capital, everything is free. So it can actually apply to this one. However, their currency is the same, right? So because of that, they're using the same currency. It's actually not all of them actually. Out of 27 countries right now, there are only 17, I think, they're using exactly the same. So it's a little bit more integrated. Therefore, it falls a little bit, it passes common market. However, when it comes to economic union, it says common economic policies. The two major components of economies are fiscal policy and monetary policy, right? Monetary policy, which is your currency, interest rate, money supply, and all that, those are same in European Union. They're common. They do have a common monetary policy, right? But when it comes to fiscal policy, they don't have the exact common fiscal policy, because the taxation rate is very different when you move from south of Europe all the way to north. The tax rates actually increases for corporations, for individuals. So you cannot put them under economic union, because one of the major components of economics is fiscal policy, right? Taxation for any country is one of the largest incomes. The United States, more than 92% of our income is based on our taxes. So therefore, that's why I said I will put them here, because one component is here, the other one is not. That's why I said, so you can really put them here. Based on that philosophy, we wouldn't have any economic union example as of now. They were trying to implement common fiscal policy as well, but right now they're actually going backwards with all of these protectionism, sentimentalism mentality. So they see the first Brexit, and then you'll see other countries, or Italy right now, they had election, more protectionist policies they would like to implement. So you see more and more they're going backwards instead of becoming more integrated. And the next one is integration of political and economic affairs. That's when two countries merge together, they become one country. A good example is West Germany and East Germany when they merged together and they became one. Or some actually say United States, when it was like Confederate States, and then it was California, and then Alaska, finally they all were purchased and put together. So that's an example too. But this is basically understanding the different levels of integration. That's the most important part of your paper, which we covered the most important part of the paper before you came, of the chapter. Okay, now, it's going to talk one by one about different examples. These are just a couple ideologies, like if trade creation, if it creates trade for me and my country, then it's good. If it does not create trade and investment for my country, then it's not good. If it's actually diverses trade from my country to another country, then it's not good. Basically based on protectionism mentalities. Now, about European, can I open the door? I left early in the morning. Does it even stay open or no? Doesn't really. Okay, now here it talks about European Union. European Union actually didn't start overnight. It started from 1951 under Coal and Steel Community. The workers, laborers in Europe, they wanted to make sure that their standards is the same across very small little nations of Europe. Now, one of the reasons of why European Union basically they decided to come up together and have such an integrated economic integrated economy together, it was because they're very, very small countries. If you think about it, the largest one, which is Germany, it's a little bit smaller than California. And that's the largest one. They have a lot of countries with only a couple million people. In Orange County, it's actually more than a couple million, right? Like Orange County, I think right now is 3 to 4 million. But over there, you see countries with 1, 2 million, even less than 1 million. So therefore, now if you live in Germany, I lived in Germany in the 80s. So in 80s, remember, it was still the wall there. So forget about the eastern part. It was only western part. You could, during a day, just like here, you go to our businessmen, they fly to Vegas, come back, Arizona, Northern California, anywhere, right? Over there, you literally do that. During a day, you go to Holland, come back, you do business deal, you go to Swiss, you go to Austria, you go to France, you go to all those neighboring countries, Denmark, whatever. You do your business deal, you come back. So think about the transaction costs and time that it was wasted at the border, and all the transaction costs, because each of those countries had their own currencies. So because they wanted to eliminate all those transaction costs and save time and money, that was one of the reasons to, of course, political reason was behind it, to become stronger, but transaction cost was a lot for businesses as well. Because each market is very small, smaller than each state of the United States. So they wouldn't do business only in their own market. They were doing business in entire Europe, right? And the culture is very similar. They didn't need to adjust much. They didn't need to change their products or services. So therefore, and all of them speak at least couple languages, 3, 4 languages, right? So therefore, that actually benefited them a lot to remove all those borders and currency is the same, to remove transaction costs. Now, this talks about the 4 member states that they started, the idea that started. Right now it's 28 member states, but EFTA started with 4 members, but now it's the European Union. It started, the forerunners of the EU was here, still in coal community, as I said. The next level, which was 1951, the next level was Treaty of Rome, established the EEC, European Economic Community in 1957. So it shows the timeline, how basically finally they reached to become 1993 here. The name was changed to the EU in 1993. Now, still at that time, they didn't have the common currency. Still, they didn't have, the borders were not completely removed in 1993. Later on, in 2000, they started one by one removing the borders, and then they implemented the common currency. These are the member states of the European Union. Now, just like United States, think about this as each state, right? Just like United States, they have their own, each country has its own, like the states here, we have our own assembly and senate, right? So each country has its own parliament, but just like us that we have a federal parliament, federal Congress, they have the same thing too. They have a Congress. Do you have a question? They have a parliament to oversee European Union. So these are the member states. Now, if you see here, it says applicants of the European Union, which is, I think Estonia here, and Turkey and Iceland. Now, we're going to talk about those as well. This basically shows the first thing, European Commission, their job is to propose EU legislation, implements it, and monitors compliance. So this is kind of like a Congress, right? You can basically come up with proposals, but doesn't not necessarily means that it's passed unless it's passed by the entire Congress and the Senate. The next one is European Parliament debates legislation proposed by the Commission and forwarded to the Council, which is here, the Council. Treaty of Lisbon increased power, which was Treaty of Lisbon is one of the treaties that gave power to Parliament. Now the third one is European Council, the ultimate power controlling authority within the EU. And after it is implemented, they send it basically, this is like our Supreme Court, Court of Justice. This basically they implement into the court system. Now, each of these states that, as I said, just like us, the more population each state has, we send more people to Congress, right? We have 2 senates, each state has 2 senates, but we have more people in the Congress. The same thing applies to Europe as well. When countries have, with a higher population, they send more of their representatives to the parliament, okay? So, the reason that you see here, which is right now it's Germany, the reason that you see here that Turkey is still, for 15 years I think right now, is still awaiting its application process is because Germany has the highest population within Europe. They have about 95, I guess, between 94 to 96 million population. Their population is decreasing dramatically, right? And Turkey's population is increasing very fast. So in 30 years, Germany will actually be number 2 as far as population because Turkey will be number 1. So they can actually send more members to Congress or to the European Parliament. The whole purpose is that European Union, they didn't want the only Muslim majority country in the entire Europe sending more representative, having more representative in the parliament. Actually, they're not the only one, but they're huge. We have Estonia here, or Bosnia and Herzegovina, but they're only a couple million, 2-3 million. So therefore, that's why their application was never basically processed. On the other hand, after seeing situation with Greece and Portugal and Italy and Spain, Turkey right now, a couple years ago, announced that we're not actually very enthusiastic to join you guys anymore because we want to see what happens to the other member states first and then pursue the application again. Because a lot of those smaller countries started falling apart, so that's why they wanted to make sure first everything goes smoothly and then join them. Now, Single European Act was the committed EC countries to work toward establishment of a single market by 1992. We just talked about it. In 1993, they changed it to European Union. And that's what they did, which we know. Remove all frontier controls between EC countries. All the borders were removed. Standards. All the standards should be the same. For example, when Eastern European countries or Eastern Bloc, when they wanted to join, they had to increase their standards. The standards of manufacturing, because European Union has one of the highest standards in the world. Japan and European Union, which is ISO 9000, right? Depending on the industry, could be 9001, 9002, which we have here like Six Sigma or Total Quality Management and all that, but they have higher standards. So if a country wants to join, they have to increase their standards, pass all those standards, because all the standards should be exactly the same. Now, among us, United States or Mexico, our standards are not exactly the same. Not exactly, they're not the same, right? That's when we take it over there because it's gonna be cheaper for us. So, physicians, attorneys, they all can practice in any country they want to because licenses now are same. So that's how they integrate. When I say integrated, that's what movement of individuals or laborers are also free because all the standards and licenses are exactly the same. So these are the steps they basically took until European Union, and then they abolished all the restrictions. Maastricht Treaty is the one that they implemented common currency. That's here they call it Maastricht too, but it's Maastricht Treaty. Committed EU members to adopt a single currency, the euro. Couple countries actually in the beginning joined Maastricht Treaty, but they pulled out of the treaty. I think Sweden, UK, Norway. They're not part of the common currency treaty.
So they have their own currencies?
Yeah.
What's the Swedish?
Denmark is krone, Sweden is krone, Norway is krone, and Britain is British pound. We talked about like how basically they reduce the benefits, reduce the cost of implementing just one. It just wants to say the costs are, it's not the best because it did damage smaller countries who joined the EU. For example, Hungary, Romania, those smaller countries, they could use as export purposes because their currency value would be very low, so they could have actually exporting opportunities. But when they joined, all of a sudden their currency value appreciated and they couldn't, although it's still, the minimum wage is still lower than Germany and of course UK. We know that in the year 2000, when they started implementing common currency, dollar was a lot stronger. At some point, dollar, I think in the beginning was 2 against 1, 2 euro against $1. But it went, euro actually picked up, appreciated a lot. About 10 years ago, euro was a lot higher than dollar. Right now, it's coming down again. They're almost, I think euro is $1.17 right now. So they're actually getting, almost becoming equal. But they went up and down a lot. These are the countries that have joined. Bulgaria and Romania joined in 2007. In 2013, Croatia joined, which the membership was up to 28. Now it's going down because 2016, the Brexit basically was passed, which they had 2 years to leave. Now, just right now, the discussion started, so they're taking the first steps of the Brexit to implement basically the strategy. So Britain will not be part of the European Union, and what happens is that initially it's assumed that British pound will drop because what keeps the currency strong is the demand for that currency, right? Just like any other supply and demand. If there is a lot of demand, the value will stay high. So right now the demand will go down because think about this, the volume of trade that UK could do with entire Europe, much easier. Right now it will be a lot of barriers, right? Goes back to before 1980s. So initially, because the volume of trade will drop, their currency is expected to drop. But it might pick up later again.
Why?
Sorry?
Why?
It depends on their policies, what they want to do. It depends on UK policy. That's why they know it's going to drop, but they don't know what time it's going to pick up back again because it really depends on their policies. Are they going to be more protectionism, implementing protectionism policies? Are they going to do something? It is assumed they will actually do a lot more trade with the United States. Okay, this is Croatia. Showing. It talks about Brexit. Okay, that was all about Europe. Now it's about Americas. Economic integration in the Americas. There was actually a proposal about 15 years ago that they make a regional economic integration in the entire Americas. That means South America, Central America, and North America all together. And it would be called integration of in the Americas. It didn't go through because Brazil and United States never could negotiate. The problem was over agriculture. United States was not willing to reduce the agriculture tariff on Brazilian imported products. So therefore, we would still have high agriculture tariff on Brazilian basically goods, agriculture goods, right? So Brazil basically says, one of my largest export is agriculture. So I can make a lot of money out of agriculture. If you're posing sanction on my agriculture, there's no reason for me to join this integration. So that's why it was stopped. They went back again, relaunched it, but it never worked. Now you see in this map, you see NAFTA, the purple one, Mercosur, is for countries, Venezuela is not anymore, Andean Community, Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, and Chile. I think there are Peru, Colombia, Ecuador, I guess it's Chile, that are part of Andean Community. Central America, which is called CAFTA, they have their own agreements. Now, Central America has CAFTA, and they have CAFTA-US, for example. The entire, basically, CAFTA community, it has their one agreement with the United States. We have another